Hi there! So today I thought I would talk about what I did to get onto MA Illustration back in 2018. From time to time I get emails sort of asking about MA Illustration at Falmouth University. You know, what's it like? How did I get on the course? How have I found my time on the course? I thought I would go ahead and make a series about the MA and how I got onto the MA. And just, you know, my thoughts on the sort of application process. So my experience might be a little bit different from what you would do in 2020 or 2021, but I think that there are still some aspects of it which are valid. So hopefully I'll just talk about my experience and hopefully you can find something that applies to you. Even if you're not thinking to apply to study art or illustration, I still think that being able to sell your story and to talk about who you are and what you do in relation to your artwork can be very helpful. I think that often people have many different hats that they wear in their lives. I know that I certainly do, but those aren't separate people doing those things, they're all you. And I think it's okay to relate your different interests into your main passion. And I know that that's what I've done with my illustration. And so far it's worked. Oh yeah, I would just like to say also that this video is not sponsored in any way by Falmouth or by anyone. This is simply me expressing my opinion as a student on the course. I think that there are all sorts of different ways of being creative, and you certainly don't need to go to university or do an MA in it in order to be a successful illustrator. All you need to do is create and to be consistent with your work, and to have a good portfolio and to be good at, you know, promoting yourself. But I do think that studying it formally can really help. So I had wanted to do an MA in art or illustration for quite a long time. I do believe that everybody that I respect working in the art or illustration industry has studied it to a certain extent for often many, many years. And while I had this, you know, great interest, I didn't feel that I could be a voice in that sphere because I didn't have the academic backgrounds to back it up, in a sense. I think that the thought was first sort of in my mind around 2016. I knew that I wanted to do further study, but there wasn't really a course which suited me at the time. So I just kind of kept my ear to the ground for a couple of years and considered applying to sort of different courses, but all of them were on campus. So I just sort of bided my time for a little bit. Then in 2018, I think very sort of early 2018, probably around January or February, I got wind of the MA at Falmouth, which had appeared on their website. It was an online part-time MA over 2 years. And I just thought, you know, hey, that's something I could actually apply for. So I started getting in touch with the admissions staff at Falmouth, I think probably around March or April of 2018, to ask for sort of general information on the course. And they were all really helpful, but it quickly became apparent that I was going to be on the first cohort to do the course, which I think gave me an awful lot of uncertainty about it. You know, it's a new subject, new conditions. I wasn't sure, you know, how it would be, and also there was nobody to ask. There was nobody like me to sort of make a video about it and talk about their experience. So I really felt sort of very much like I was going out on a limb. But I went ahead and started doing the application. So for me, the process for that was, sorry, once again, I've got all my notes here. The process for that for me was that I started contacting references in May, actually, and doing the application at that time. So the requirements to get onto the course were an honours degree equivalent to a UK 2.2 or above in illustration or a related subject, proof of proficiency in English if you're a non-native speaker, and a digital portfolio of your illustration practice. So for me, the instant issue here is that I do not have a BA in illustration or a related subject. So I studied Japanese at Leeds University for my BA. which has stood me in very good stead. It was a great course to study. I got a year abroad out of it, and I'm currently living and working in Japan thanks to that degree. So I think it was a really, really good thing. But how do you relate a course like Japanese, which is language and culture, to something like illustration, which is, you know, technical skill and sort of visual language? I had to think about how I would tell the story of my illustration. So for me, I was able to sort of look back at my past and pick up threads of sort of linking threads which united these interests. So in my case, I was interested in Japanese originally because I really liked Japanese art. So I thought that the art style of Japanese prints was really beautiful, and I wondered how they were made. My route into the language was also that, you know, Japanese prints often have writing on the side of them, and I sort of wondered what it said. So I started studying just to kind of learn more about the art. So from when I was 15, I started trying to teach myself Japanese, and this just became an obsession. Which was why I ended up doing it at university. But for me, even though it might not be obvious from the outside, the clear through road, I guess, from languages to illustration was the cultural context that they were in. So when I was writing my personal statement, I focused on those sort of linking elements that my interest in art had facilitated my study of Japanese. Also, as a language learner, you get very, very good at hours and hours and hours of focused, very boring study. So I was able to appeal to the Falmouth admissions team by saying that the discipline required for language learning would be applicable to the discipline required to doing an online part-time AMA while working. So I think I had two quite strong points there, that my language learning informed my illustration and vice versa, and also that I would be a strong, how do you say, like a strong student for the team if I was admitted onto the course because of my sort of discipline with regards to, you know, putting in the time that is required to become, you know, good at a skill. Those were the main things which I focused on. But I also talked about how I was making the art which went into my portfolio. So I was given some advice about my portfolio from the admissions staff at the time. Again, this may be different in 2020 or 2021, so do email them, you know, get in contact, ask for clarification. But for me, the advice that was given was your portfolio will focus on innovative thinking and show the generation of strong ideas. There should be evidence of good use of colour, composition and appropriate use of media. It should be well presented, current and logically organised. Importantly, it should show that you can think creatively and conceptually. So for me, I had just been doing, you know, drawing literally stuff that was in front of me, like I'm confident drawing from life. And so having to think creatively and conceptually about my drawings was a massive effort. It was something I did not feel confident in at all. But I was asked to produce 20 to 25 images for my application, and so I just set to it and tried to produce things without using reference images and largely from imagination. So I do think that better illustrations are generally made with some form of reference imagery, but reference imagery can hamper your sort of creativity to some extent. A lot of really successful illustrators, I think, also deconstruct images, so they will approach their drawing in a sort of a freer way, or a more sort of childlike way, or pick up aspects of the image which speak to them and which convey the essence of what it is they're wanting to convey without being a slave to detail. So yeah, that was how I produced my portfolio, and the final submission was an online application, and then the portfolio of 20 to 25 images which I attached to a separate page on my website, which I kept live for about 2 months surrounding my application, and then just quietly removed after I got into Falmouth. Once I had all my references in and had uploaded my portfolio to my website, I just sort of sat back and waited really, and then was very, very happy to find that I got on the course. So a note about cost. For anyone who is thinking to do an MA, the cost can be quite a big barrier. I think especially when the MA is online and part-time, it's very easy to feel like you're being ripped off. Thankfully, I don't think that has been the case for me. I do think that the teaching and the quality of care on the course has been very, very high. And especially since these are the kind of fees that all institutions charge nowadays in the UK, there isn't really very much to be done about it. So for me, in 2018, the cost of the MA was £9,500. However, there are two things that you can do to lower this cost. So the first thing is to accept your place early. So for me, that reduced the cost of the fees to by £1,000. Then the second thing that you can do is to pay the whole cost of the MA up front. So that took off a further £750 for me when I was applying. So even though the full cost was £9,500, I lowered it to £7,750 by doing those two things. And also, since the MA was already paid for, I didn't have to worry about paying, for the MA as the course was ongoing. And I think that just saved me an awful lot of stress. So if you're in a position to do that, then I feel that it would probably be a very good idea. Okay, so thank you very much, and I will be back with another video before too long, hopefully. Alright, thank you. Bye bye.